You're listening to Binjang 91.5, and on the line in Madrid I have Mathew Dickerson for our first Tech Talk in 2020.
Yeah, it's a great place to come to for Tech Talk to start 2020. A little bit chillier than Dubbo. It's actually nice to get some clean air to breathe at the moment with all the smoke that's around back home.
Well, I'm very envious, Matthew. However, the life goes on, so the first topic is, man has sued a camera company called Ring after a creep hacked the device and taunted the kids. So how on earth did that happen?
Well, we've talked about this one a little bit before, in that we had a camera that was in a young girl's bedroom, and next thing you know, the young girl was having a conversation with some stranger that had hacked into the camera. Now, it's happened again, and when you mention Ring is a company that came up with some cameras, some doorbells, and then Amazon bought them out. So it's actually an Amazon company now, even though it's still under the brand name of Ring. So this particular gentleman figures that Amazon's got deep enough pockets that he can sue, and he's suing them for security breach. He believes that the security that's inherent in the products from Ring is not good enough, and consumers expect a much higher level of security, and because they're selling those products and selling the promise that these products are good and safe to be used, he believes they're breaking that promise, so he's suing them based on that. Now, of course, this is America, and people like to sue at the drop of a hat in America. Whether he'll be successful or not, I'm not sure, but what it does expose is there's an incredible amount of interest around security, and that's one of the main things of just about every product that comes on the market at the moment. Security seems to be the number one focus, the number one feature that people are concerned about.
Yeah, well, apparently someone breached the Ring's security system when his 3 children were playing basketball on the driveway. So if that's the case, he might have a point. Now, moving on to our next topic, we've got the folding Motorola Razr smartphone revival being delayed due to, well, can you believe this, unparalleled excitement?
Now, we have mentioned the Razr before. It was an
are you
incredibly
excited?
popular phone. Well, I am a bit excited about that because the market has been so dominated at the moment by Apple and by Samsung. So to have someone else come along, and Motorola used to be the number one phone company way back in 1990 when I first sold mobile phones. My first mobile phone that I sold, they were all Motorola's. They were bag phones, they were brick phones. Motorola was the number one brand. Now, they haven't been the number one brand for some time. But the fact that the Razr is making a comeback, and the Razr was a phone that was out many years ago, they've basically re-engineered it, made it a modern phone, they brought it out. The fact they've brought it out and there's so much demand for it that they're thinking about delaying the launch because they have to ramp up the actual supply seems incredible. But again, I'm pretty excited about the fact that there might be someone else on the market besides Samsung, besides Apple, and for consumers, the great thing about that is that when you've got more competition, when you've got more companies that are vying for number one spot, you've got better products and usually cheaper prices.
Yeah, bring it on, I say. Now,
bring it on.
Bring it on. Forget Spotify for streaming fantasy. It's not going to happen. And what we're talking about here is an all-encompassing streaming service that does everything, aren't we? And that doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon, does it?
No, there are so many different choices at the moment for streaming. In fact, if you counted up all the major ones, plus some of the niche products, you've got at least 13 streaming services in Australia. And if you actually subscribe to all of them, you'd be up for about $150 per month. And obviously it wouldn't be sensible or logical to do that. So there was some discussion that maybe, hopefully, there'd be someone who'd come along and do a Spotify, if you like. And the idea there would be that there'd be one service that you subscribe to, and that allows you to get access to all of those 13 services, or maybe not all 13, but the majority of those. But it seems that the business models for those different streaming services are so tight that they just can't give away much of their margin, and there's been no one really able to crack that nut of being able to have the one streaming service. So as much as you and I would like it as consumers, I don't see any time soon that there'll be that one all-encompassing streaming provider. As much as we'd like it, I just don't think the business model stacks up. Or if it did, you might pay $150 a month, so there wouldn't be much point to it.
So we're still stuck with compiling services like radio and free-to-air TV then?
That's exactly right, and I think more than that, it's about picking the services that have got the programs and the TV shows that you like. And sometimes you might subscribe to one particular one because there's just one show, one killer show that's the one you want. So they're all trying to produce that content. I mean, Netflix is spending a huge amount of its money at the moment on producing its own content so that you can only get those particular shows on Netflix. They believe that's the way they'll win the market. Disney Plus has obviously got this huge backlog of all these favourites that we all watched as kids or had our kids watch as they were growing up. So that's really their niche, their focus on their product. So they've all got their different focus, and that's the idea, is that you subscribe to the ones that you think are going to suit your viewing standards or your viewing patterns.
I think that's almost impossible. Anyway. Now, H2Go Power seeks to power drones with a happy gas. So explain that, Matthew.
Well, when we think of hydrogen and aircraft, of course we think of a blimp in incredible flames and that terrible scene of the blimp falling to the ground in flames and people being burnt as they're running away from it. So it's not something that gets people that excited. But there's a couple of researchers that have been working on hydrogen-powered drones and making sure they do it safely. One of the big problems with hydrogen typically as a fuel source is that you've got to keep it under high compression, and you've got to build something that's fairly substantial to contain that pressure, and doing that in something like a drone makes it very difficult because there's too much weight involved in that. But these researchers have come up with a way of storing hydrogen as a solid and then having a catalytic converter that basically mixes it with oxygen, and you end up with good old-fashioned H2O as the output for that. So they're working on that. They've had some trials already where they've actually flown a drone powered by hydrogen in a very safe way. Some of the testing they're doing is basically crashing drones and trying to see if they can get it to explode or catch on fire, and obviously that's a really big part of it, because when they go to the point where they might commercialise it, then they want to be able to make sure they've got the ability to say that this is safe. So it's pretty exciting to see where we might go with hydrogen-powered drones, and then you might get hydrogen-powered planes, and of course we're talking about hydrogen-powered cars as well, so it might be the next wonder fuel.
Well, who knows? Let's face it, rockets these days, rockets for a long time have been using solid fuels.
Yeah, that's right.
So the potential is there.
Yeah, exactly right. And the amount of energy per kilogram is greater, about 3 times greater for hydrogen than it is for a traditional petrol or a diesel source. So the ability to run cars, for example, on that, and planes as well, is obviously there. The energy per kilogram for batteries is very low, and that's one of the constraints of batteries in particular when you talk about aeroplanes. So this is a pretty exciting development.
Certainly is. And you've been listening to Binjang 91.5 Tech Talk with Mathew Dickerson, and I'm your host, Tony Graham, and I'll be back this afternoon with more.